and welcome to As Goes Wisconsin. So glad to have you joining us in Eau Claire and Green Bay, and the place where I have never been, which I know I will love when I finally get up there, from our station in Amory, Wisconsin. It's the Lake Air. Thank you for joining us. It's Thursday at 11:06, and that means it is time for our public cervix announcement. Dr. Kristin Lyerly is with us. Good morning, doctor.
Hi, Doc.
Hello again.
We cannot hear you. Hello.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
There we go.
Now we can hear
You
you.
would think I would know. Hey, maybe we should do a live broadcast from the brewery up in Amory, which is fantastic. You've got to get there.
You've been to Amory?
Oh, yeah. I rode my bike through Amory.
I'll be darned. I've never been there either.
It's one of those places that I've never been, like Vancouver, British Columbia.
Oh,
I know I would love it there, and I've never been, and I feel the same way about Amory. So we'll have to go bike riding, and then we'll go drinking.
They go together.
That sounds like a smart plan.
Yeah, well, she's a doctor. I follow my doctor's advice.
I'm here for you.
So we're gonna start out by talking about estrogen and estrogen pellet therapy. I have never heard of this.
This is news to me.
What is this?
You haven't heard about pellets? Come on, guys. They've been around since the 40s.
It's all new. It's all
This
new
is-
to me.
This is news to me too. I didn't know anything about these things. So explain to me what they are. What is it?
These are literally they are little estrogen pellets that are inserted under your skin every 3 months to provide hormone replacement. And they are not uncommonly used by people who aren't super excited about what the conventional treatments are out there. So they'll seek out other providers who are compounding their medications, and they're doing things like saliva testing and things that aren't considered like conventional traditional medicine. And it sounds pretty straightforward, but there are problems when you compound things, combine things, and then inject them under your skin. Can you imagine?
I can imagine.
I just did.
So I want to make sure that I'm understanding this. So the whole point is to affect your symptoms of menopause. Is that what that's what this is about?
That's exactly what this is about. When this first came about, there were, medicine has really evolved a lot in the last 100 years, especially in women's health when everything was super taboo. So there were women who didn't have their ovaries and they were suffering mightily, as many of us understand. Like, women suffer often with menopause. And what they discovered was they could inject these pellets, and women felt much better once they had that replacement therapy. But what they didn't know way back then was if you give somebody who still has a uterus unopposed estrogen, you just give them the estrogen, then it creates that tissue that typically, if you're having a normal cycle, will become your period every month. But if you don't have normal periods, you don't have the normal cycle of hormones, that tissue just grows and builds, and it can turn into a cancer, which is one of the problems that we've seen with these pellets, both way back in the 40s and 50s and now. Sometimes these pellets have too much estrogen, and people end up with supra-physiologic doses, and they can develop a cancer.
Wow. Okay. Where can you get these said pellets?
Well, typically, conventional doctors, like board-certified OBGYNs like me, we offer other alternatives. We offer pills, patches, sprays, rings. There are lots of different ways that you can get these hormones into your body. The pellets are typically offered by alternative providers. So people who are maybe lifestyle medicine docs, or, not necessarily your mainstream folks. And, to be very fair, pellet therapy can work for some people, but it does need to be very carefully monitored. And you have to make sure, if you're choosing a compound pharmacy for any medication, not just hormones, not just estrogen, but for any medications, you need to make sure that that therapy is, or that that pharmacy is reputable, because they are literally making your medicines there at the pharmacy. This is not something that goes through the whole FDA process. It's not something that's regulated or monitored. It is something that they are kind of making in their kitchen. So you want to make sure that they are a good, solid provider before you start injecting something in your body that's going to stay there for 3 months.
Our guest is Dr. Kristin Lyerly. She joins us every Thursday for our public cervix announcements, and we're talking about estrogen pellet treatments. I don't know. I went through menopause, and it wasn't great, but I didn't, I mean, I don't know.
See, my mom suffered.
Did she?
Yeah, my mom was terrible. Mine was just lengthy. It just never was ending. You know, it was one of those things that just is like, oh God, I got another hot flash. Really? But I mean,
Yeah.
but my mom did really suffer. She really had trouble with menopause.
And was it the hot flashes?
It was the lack of sleep. It was the hot flashes. It was the, she was edgy. She was, anxious. You name it. That was what happened. So I don't know. And this probably would have been something that would have been an advantage for her. Yeah.
Again,
For sure.
I had the hot flashes. I was certainly not any crankier than I am normally. I was pretty much standard cranky for me. I don't know.
I told you, Doc, I told a story off the air before we even got started, and it's kind of funny, but I was having a really bad episode, let's call it that. And I got into my kitchen and I took everything off. My kids were out, they weren't in home anymore. I took everything off. And I stood in front of the kitchen sink and splashed cold water all over me. I just could not get, the steam was coming off.
Some people use a shower, but the kitchen sink works too.
I didn't make it upstairs.
Wow.
But then all of a sudden, this is what I heard behind me. What you doing? And my husband had come home from work. I'm standing naked in the kitchen, spraying myself with cold water. There,
whatever works for you.
Menopause makes people crazy.
A texter from the 715 says, "Without my estradiol, no one would ever want to talk to me."
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
I'm telling you, the symptoms that some people just glide through it and it's no problem. Some people suffer remarkably. Hot flashes and night sweats. Night sweats keep you up. And if you're not sleeping, then you're cranky and you're anxious and you're not productive at work. And it can cause problems down the road. And it can contribute to things like blood pressure problems and heart disease and other medical issues. So those are two of the big things, but also vaginal dryness. That is a huge problem, and that's related to urinary tract infections and, of course, issues with comfort and sex.
Well, so again, ultimately, talk to your doctor about this. There are options for you if you are. That's just. I mean, again, it wasn't a walk in the park. I had the hot flashes and stuff like that, but I certainly don't feel like I suffered to the extent that I'm hearing about some other women going through. That's terrible.
Yeah. But you know what's nice is to know that there's help out there. That's the main thing. Passing along this information can really help some women out, and we just need to know about it.
Yeah, definitely.
And there have been two huge barriers. One is the fact that it's women's health, and we have a hard time talking about women's health issues. But the other barrier was the Women's Health Initiative, which was this huge study that came out 2 decades ago that looked at hormone therapy. And we thought that it was going to be good for women's hearts, which it probably is. But some of the early information showed that it actually caused strokes and heart attacks in some populations of women. So a lot of people got really nervous, including doctors, and people were just like, I don't need it. It's not that important. I'm not going to do anything. And that's where the rise of some of these alternative therapies have really come from. But there are solutions. So if you are suffering, if you need answers, go to your doctor. We can find solutions for you, and they need to be tailored toward your own personal needs and your history.
Absolutely. And you wanted to mention something too about there are new guidelines for cancer screenings.
New lung cancer guidelines. Guys, we need to start thinking about lung cancer like we screen for mammography. If you have a 20 pack year history, which means you smoked a pack a day for 20 years, and you are between the ages of, I think it's 50 and 74, you need to be screened every single year with a CT scan to make sure that there is not an early lung cancer developing there. The key to treating lung cancer, which is the number one cause of cancer-related deaths in this country, is early diagnosis. If we can diagnose lung cancer when it's still in the lungs, the 5-year survival rate is like 65%.
Wow.
So if we think about lung cancer screening the way we think about breast cancer screening, think of all the lives we'll save.
That's really important.
That's really important information too, because I would never have thought about that. And I mean, honestly, I went to school in the 70s. I mean, everybody was smoking, everybody. So I think that this is really super important for women to know too.
Women and men. And currently only about 10% of eligible folks get their screening nationwide. 10%. So the other 90%, get in there.
Let's get out there and do it, people, and get your screenings. All right, when we come back, ringing in the ears.
Yeah, boy, howdy. I can't wait to hear you on this one.
Will you be able to hear her on this one?
This is something that a lot of people struggle with. So when we come back, we are going to chat about the ringing of the ears. Stay with us if you can. You're listening to As Goes Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning and welcome to As Goes Wisconsin. Jane Matnair in for Kristen Bry, Carol Kane, and Greg Bach. Joining me in studio, Calvin is on the board, and we'd love to hear from you as well at 844-967-2789. I had a quick text from Gary. We were just talking about hormone estrogen therapy and hormone replacement therapy for women who are struggling with menopause. And Gary checking in from the 262. I'm glad I'm a man. We are too, Gary. Yes, we're happy you are.
You know what, Gary? From one guy to another sort of guy, good job.
And also, can I just note that nobody enjoyed that bumper music, I'm Every Woman, more than Greg Bach in the studio right now.
You should watch the live stream.
I mean,
I'm telling you, you really should watch the live stream just for the chair dancing moves. And apparently yesterday was a good facial expression day.
Great facial expression day. And I'm to my own horn for it. You get 4 hours of me chair dancing a day.
That's right. You're producing now.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, heck yeah. All right. Let's move on to ears, Dr. Lyerly.
Mm-hmm.
And Carol has had
I've had tinnitus or tinnitus, however you want to pronounce it, for a long time. My dad had it. My brother has it. My question for you is, one, I know that there's a certain amount of damage that I've done to my hearing just because of the fact that I've been in this business for 40 some years and I've worn headphones for hours and hours on end. But is there any kind of like hereditary influence when it comes to something like this?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know about a hereditary influence directly on tinnitus, but there are underlying conditions that can contribute to tinnitus. So my recommendation, given how hereditary it's been, would be to talk to your doctor about it, especially if it's causing problems in your day-to-day life. If it's just little and it's kind of intermittent and it's not really bothering you, and it goes away, then don't worry about it. But if it's persistent and it's causing disruption or even just anxiety related to the tinnitus, you really ought to get it checked out. It could be an indicator of something more.
And what can they do for tinnitus, Dr. Lyerly?
There's not a whole heck of a lot that you can do. There are some supplements, some dietary changes, healthier living kind of stuff, but there's not like a silver bullet or a medication or even really a medical procedure that can treat it. The symptoms tend to wax and wane, and if there's an underlying condition, we can treat that. But for the most part, you just kind of learn to live with it.
Boy, that's got to be really challenging.
Woofers.
It's mine's a concert all the time. I have a personal symphony that's going on all the time. And to tell you the truth, I've gone to see ENTs. I've had my hearing checked, and I was just told, get hearing aids. That's it. And
Does
do
that
they?
solve the problem though?
No, they don't solve the problem, but it probably can aid in your hearing, right, Doc?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly can help some people. Hearing aids don't work for everybody either, but if your main problem is hearing loss, hearing aids can help. If your main problem is that constant ringing in your ear, whatever that sounds like to you, that's hard. That's really troubling, and it can create other issues like anxiety, depression, frustration, obviously. So that's tough, Carol.
Oh, I'm just kind of used to it. In all honesty, I mean, it's been going on for so long that I just kind of resign. What am I going to do?
Right. It's just part of what you have to deal with.
It's part of the charming Carol that I am.
It's part of the whole Carol package.
There are some things though that people can do, maybe not for you because it sounds like this is hereditary. So who exactly knows whether it was handed down or if it was environmental? But for those of us who are exposed to loud sounds, even something like a leaf blower or a lawnmower, it's not a bad idea to wear hearing protection. Musicians often will wear hearing protection, like, drummers, or if you go to loud concerts, it's not unusual for people to have earplugs that they wear. I was on the drum line in college and we all had earplugs that were issued to us. We weren't great about wearing them, but that would have been smart back then. But even something like a hair dryer can be really loud. Like if you're a hairdresser and you're constantly faced with, loud hair dryers, that can even cause a problem. So if you recognize that you are going to be in a situation where you're being exposed to something louder than 70 decibels, not a bad idea to wear something to protect your hearing.
844-967-2789 if you have a question or you want to chime in with Dr. Kristin Lyerly during our public cervix announcement. Sandy from Milwaukee is on the phone. Good morning, Sandy.
Hi.
Hey, good morning. I love the conversation about tinnitus or tinnitus or however you choose to pronounce it. And I just want to make a couple comments too. Having worked in a factory for 30 years, you would think that would be the contributing factor, but not necessarily. I discussed it with my doctor. I said, I want you to flush my ears out to see if you can get that ringing to stop. And he just kind of sat back in the chair. He says, it's not in the ears, it's in the brain. It comes from the brain. That the sound that you get comes from the brain because it's trying to make up for a portion of hearing loss that you have. So it's making the noise, not in the ears. Now, maybe...
It's the damaged hair cells in the cochlea deep inside your ear, inside your inner ear, trying to communicate with your brain. So yeah, your doctor is right, but it does have to do with damage that's deep inside that washing out your ears won't help. Now, if you do have impacted wax in there, that can definitely affect your hearing. So if your doctor looks inside your ear and they can see that there's wax or that there's something stuck in there, removing that should help. And by the way, Q-tips, we've all heard, don't ever put anything smaller than your elbow in your ear. Kind of true.
Don't tell me what to do.
Thank you for calling, Sandy. Really appreciate it. I love my Q-tips.
I do too.
It gets itchy and I want to scratch the inside of my ear.
Can I ask a really quick question on this topic? Where can one go to get their ears cleaned or flushed or... Because I would like to do that. I understand Q-tips aren't the best, but where can someone go?
Primary care docs for the most part. And actually, it's a nurse that'll flush out your ears for you.
Oh, great.
So you can just go to your doc and tell them I need a little flush.
Flush the old hearing holes, huh?
If you ever,
they're going to want to look first, though.
Right. They're not going to do it just for fun, Greg. So maybe they'll
never mind. Forget it.
If you ever have a question for Dr. Lyerly, you can text it in. You can email us at asgoeswisconsin@civicmedia.us or text it at 844-967-2789. Always a pleasure to have you, Dr. Lyerly. We will talk to you next Thursday.
Thank you.
I love hanging out with you guys.
Take care and stay with us when we come back. Coming up next, we have Paul Noonan. We're talking all things sports balls. You're listening to As Goes Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network.